two, one, and welcome, welcome, welcome to your Vibrant Health Secrets. We have had a technically challenging event happening here. It's been really very interesting. So we've had to change our hangout location. I hope that you can find us. I've posted the link and so on, but you may or may not be able to reach us, which is a pity because you're welcome to jump on the hangout if you want and have some live readings from our wonderful guest. And this is something that's always fascinated me. I've had experiences before where I have been able to communicate with animals. I actually had an experience where a bull charged in this field that I was in. And I was walking through this field and I was playing my little tenor recorder. And I was playing my recorder and this bull came up over the horizon, looked really angry and started charging toward me. And I just put down the recorder and I just put myself into this like really deeply centered place, just sending love to the bull. And I started singing Handel's Messiah. And I was just
Oh,
singing it to the bull and doing all this stuff. And what happened was that the bull came up and rubbed up against me like a kitten, just
whoa.
rubbed up like this, and then it turned around and ran in the opposite direction. So I'm absolutely delighted to have Ana Maria Vasquez, who is an animal communicator. She's also an intuitive. She works with so many different people, and I'm going to let her tell you about herself so she can tell you the things that she thinks it's important for you to know about. So, Ana Maria, what gives you the right to be here with us today, and why should people listen to you?
I love that question. That's so perfect. And my passion really comes from suffering from not recognizing my gift. Most animal communicators that I had ever seen in my life, they got their information very differently. It came through in a different way. I always knew I had a connection to animals, but I didn't get that they were talking to me, and I wasn't understanding the way that the energy was coming in. So it was very confusing to me. And so I suppressed the gift for a long time, and it created all sorts of havoc in my life and very uncomfortable energy to be with and feeling so sensitive. I know people in your community resonate with that, where you feel uncomfortable around other people's energy and you can't discern what's yours and what's theirs, and feeling like there's messages coming in, but you can't get a clear read on it. It's too staticky or something like that. And so I had gotten to a point where I had resisted my gift long enough, and I was working in the corporate world, and I was just dabbling on the side in intuitive coaching and trying to connect with the animals. And then the banking crisis hit, and I was working in a bank at the time as a trainer and staff development person, and I lost my job. And as a result of losing my job, I lost my home, which was a 35-acre ranch in the mountains of Colorado. And I got like, oh man, my higher self is up to something big here. And so it's time to walk my talk and really, put up or shut up. All this stuff that I talk about and all these spiritual concepts are either real or they're just fluff that I say. So I immersed myself completely in the energy and in the asking for my gifts to come through. I did a vision quest, and it was interesting because during my vision quest, nothing happened. Like, I was like, oh no, I did this wrong. All I am at the end of this is tired and hungry and cold and in the woods. And I'm not sure even to this day if I expected like a unicorn to come out. I was up in the redwoods. I expected something to happen, a vision or something, and nothing happened. However, once I left the vision quest, the wheels of synchronicity started to turn and everything started falling into place. And within a couple weeks, one of the trees where I was living started to talk to me. And I had asked just a rhetorical question. You're sitting at your computer sometimes pondering stuff, and I had asked this rhetorical question, and I got an answer. And it wasn't in my thinking voice. So I was a little startled and really wasn't sure what was going on. I kind of thought that maybe I was losing my mind because I was like, well, I've been under a lot of stress. I lost my job. I lost my home, transitions in relationships. I could just be losing it. So I played along and I asked the tree some more questions, and little by little, I was able to verify things the tree was telling me about things that had happened to her, things that had happened on the property, and even some other more broad questions that I could then verify the answers. Things I didn't know the answer to, I would ask her and then go research to get it. So I started to build it up. And then one day I remember talking to her, and her name was Ruby, and she was a red pine, which I always think is so hysterical because I knew her name before I knew the kind of tree she was. But one day I told her, I was like, you know what, Ruby, I don't want to be ungrateful, but I asked to talk to animals, not to trees. I'm not really sure what I do with this ability to talk to trees. And so she just kind of laughed a little bit and humored me. And she was like, you know, you're calibrating your energy into this universal wisdom field. And this is just one of the steps. And there's some patience involved here. And there's some honing of your abilities and trusting what's coming in. So we moved past that. And it really wasn't long. Like these things at the time, it felt like forever. But it was really over the course of a couple months, maybe even a little bit less than that. And then the animal started talking, and actually animals started showing up in my experience.
Okay, for some reason, again, this has been a real technical challenge, but what we're experiencing right now is that you have frozen. So we're not hearing you and we're not seeing you. And this is such an exciting journey that you're sharing with us because, you know, for people, for a lot of people, talking to trees would seem so far out there. And, you know, going from the corporate world to changing over could be really an experience. So what I suggest that you do, Anna Maria, is just try hanging up with the button above and then coming on the Hangout again and seeing if we can't get you to be able to unfreeze, because right now we're not getting you. And you know, no, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can see that you're giving me a message and so on. So I'm going to suggest that you hang up and come back again. Okay, I'll write this down. We have a little place that we can message each other and come on again. So I'm going to suggest that to Anna Maria, and this is something that she can, you know, come out of the Hangout and then come back in and see if that unfreezes it, because we've had just so many technical difficulties today. I don't know. Hangout's going through some kind of glitch stuff things happening. So I'm really glad that you're able to join us, and I see that she is trying to come back on. So hopefully this will happen. But, you know, I have an animal totem, which is a bald eagle. And it's really interesting because I went climbing up Mount Shasta. And as I was climbing up Mount Shasta, the bald eagle came to me and it started directing me. So there would be like choices in paths where paths would split, and all these little butterflies would come and they'd all fly on one path. And so I'd know that was the direction to go on, and the bald eagle would be there. It was truly amazing to see how this synergy happened. And now everywhere I go, I see bald eagles. So I'm living in Lake Okanagan right now. I go swimming, and as I'm swimming, sure enough, the bald eagle flies right up overhead, and I swim like 4 different strokes. So when I'm doing the backstroke part of it and I'm looking up in the air, there's the bald eagle flying right over. And the bald eagle will sit in this tree and watch me swimming and so on. And it's such this feeling of connection. It's really neat. So tell me, Anna Maria, are you able to talk to us? Are you here? I see you, but I see you down below. Can you hear anything? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Are you here? Can you hear us? Can you hear us? I really don't know what's happening today. It's so weird, really weird. So I'll just ask her. It's very, very, very strange. And so I was watching this thing recently. I don't know if any of you are interested in the a point, or if you're interested in animal communication. But I saw this beautiful thing of this very young girl in France who's now grown up, but she was raised in Africa and she traveled with all kinds of wild animals. Just let me know if you can hear. So she can't hear anything that's going on. So I don't really know what is happening with this. It's very weird. So let me just ask her to try talking. And we'll see if we can hear her.
Can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay. I can hear you.
Okay. So we can communicate via inner notes. Okay. I'll ask questions via inner notes. So hang on. I'll write this to her since we can't do it any other way. I'll ask questions in chat. Okay. Ask in chat. Okay. So now you talk. Tell your story.
Perfect.
Tell your story. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Do you remember where it stopped? Where the last part that you heard by any chance?
No,
No. Okay, absolutely. So, really, the reason that I'm here and the reason that it's such a passion of mine to bring the messages of the animals to people is, and it's interesting because I'm getting the nudge to go in a different direction actually than what I thought originally. So I'm going to follow that energy. And the one thing that I know about energy is when we run into all of these pieces, I know that there's someone on this call who is needing an answer but having trouble taking in that answer. And so our energy, when it's mismanaged like that and kind of chaotic, it will screw with everything like this. And it's interesting because those are the times when we have to stay present and not make things wrong. And the animals have taught me that so much about being present to what's going on in the moment and moving from there and paying attention to our senses. Some people tune into that higher guidance from angels or ascended masters or other divination tools, but some people are more connected to animals and nature. And they can act as a portal to remembering our oneness. And animals, when they, especially those who live with us, they take on our energy after a while. Because think about it, when they're in the wild, they're using all their energy, all their senses to pay attention to what's going on in their environment so they don't get eaten, or so they can find food, or so they can mate. But when they live with us, we take care of all that stuff. We've taken care of the mating part. We make sure that they're fed. Nothing in our home is going to eat them. And so they're able to redirect their energy to pay attention to us. Any of us who have animals know when we've had a good day, excuse me, we come home and we get on the floor and play with our animals. When we've had a bad day, we come home, the animals come over, go away. And so it behooves them to pay attention to our energetic field. And what happens is they begin to take on our energy. And just like I know that the people in your community understand this, energy can wad up and get stuck in certain parts of our body and manifest as, certain dis-ease or even behavioral issues. Well, it's the same thing in animals. So our animals can reflect back to us, they mirror back to us our inner terrain, what's going on inside of us at an energetic level. And the more connected we are to our animals, the quicker it shows up. The good thing is the quicker we can also move it and alchemize it. And this is part of the gift that the animals want to share with us. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, actually it does. It really does, because we're
Perfect.
all being. Yes. So just a sec. Okay. One thing, okay? Animals, I'm going to be saying this and writing it at the same time. And so animals must be upset by all the EMF radiation. Okay, so we'll see what she has to say about that. Okay.
so tuned in to all of the frequencies around them. So this is something that disrupts their systems too. But here's the kicker. It disrupts our ability to get the messages from them. So it's so important that we are doing everything we can to keep our space clear and clean. And this goes, of course, protecting ourselves from EMFs, radio waves, microwaves, any of the food additives, the chemicals, all of those pieces really dim down our antenna and our ability to take in the signals. It also affects our animals in terms of ability to connect. And a lot of people, what I find, those who, they love their animal, but they maybe haven't gotten that can absolutely add to the dimming down and kind of that mentality of it's just a dog, or I think something's going on, but maybe I'm just making it up. The clearer we can keep our channels, our antenna, free of this energetic pollution, the more receptive we are to the messages coming through, and the easier we can tune in and what they are. We communicate with our animal like Mr. Ed. The dog is just going to open its mouth and start talking, and we're going to hear it. That's not how it happens. And this is, it could happen that way. However, we have so many limiting beliefs in place that the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. So what we have to do is learn how we're wired and learn how to detect the messages. The animals share with me all the time that their humans are always asking for guidance and direction and answers and clarity, but we never take the time to sit and listen for the answer. We're just kind of asking, and we never wait for that answer to come in. In terms of the messages that I get from people's pets, I get them in different ways. Like I said earlier, I'm multisensitive, multisensory, so it comes in different ways. Sometimes I'll feel what's going on in the animal's body. I just had a session ahead of time, and this animal was telling me what was going on in her body when she was so sick. And like my breathing got really labored, and I was like having a hard time breathing. So the first thing I had to do was say, okay, so tell me about this labored breathing and this inability to take a full breath. And the guardian was so astounded because she was like, yeah, she goes, that wasn't anything I would even think you would pick up on, but it was really a big deal to the animal. So I'll feel things in my body, I'll hear things, and sometimes I'll even cock my head because it feels like it's trying to come in one particular ear or the other, and so I look like a new newscaster trying to listen a little bit closer. I'll see things in my mind's eye, like a picture or a movie. They'll play things out, they'll show me pieces. One of the most spectacular ways it comes through for me is what I call third eye projections. And so it will look like the animal's there, kind of like in the movies where you see a ghost overlay. It's not scary or anything, but I know that it's not solid. And one of the first experiences I had with that was so profound is I was getting ready to do a session with someone, and I had taken my dogs outside to go to the bathroom, and they are black dogs, and it was nighttime, so they went to the bathroom, and I turned around to walk back, and I stopped myself because I thought I was going to trip over this dog. And I was like, as soon as I was like, oh my gosh, what's my dog doing there? I looked, and the two dogs came running back, and I was like, uh-oh, there's another dog. And I looked, and I got that it wasn't a real dog. It was just an overlay. And so I said, well, okay, I don't know who you are or why you're here. And I just got this feeling, in the sentience that I would know when it was time. And so I went in and started doing the session, and we were doing a session, it might have been for a cat or something, so I didn't even put it together, but I got ask her about the dog. And so I asked the woman, I'm like, this is going to sound whack job, but tell me about the black dog with the white patch on its chest. And she bursts into tears, and she's like, that's my dog, my soul dog that passed over 14 years ago. That's not even possible. We're here to talk about my cat. And so I got that it was ways that the animals were really wanting to come through. And so I get that a lot before interviews, before readings, where animals just show up in my space. And I know if they don't come to me directly with a message, that they're just making their presence known. I believe it's a way of them calibrating to my energy so that I can get the messages a little bit easier. But it's really kind of fun that way, and it's opened the gates to so many other pieces of information being able to come in. So people will come to me when their animal's having issues physically or behaviorally, and we'll look and the animal will show me what's going on, either physically or behaviorally, but they jump really quickly to the energy that they're picking up from their humans. Because through my experience, what I found is when we're able to shift that energy at that energetic level, shift what's going on, it catapults the balancing happening in the 3D, whether it's in their physical body or whether it's in their behavior. And so if people are approaching it from both of those perspectives, then we can move the healing and bring things back into balance a lot quicker.
Okay, I have a question for you, which of course, because we're having all these technical difficulties, you can't hear me. But one thing is to put your lower third on, if you can do that. I've put a message in the side for you. But also, when animals die, okay, when our pets die, so it's taking me a bit of time here because I have to write it down for her as well. But when our pets die, people don't understand. People don't understand the grieving. They don't understand how important it is. Other people, so they don't understand. People don't understand the grieving. They think it's just a dog, and so I would like her to talk about that because, for example, in the little trailer video that we did for this, it's my dog Sadie who's in it, and when she died, it really bothered me. But a year later, I was speaking on a stage, and before I went up, there was a woman talking. And she was talking about her horse. She was a veterinarian. And when she was talking about her horse, I was just completely broken up because it just reminded me. It brought back the grief of my dog. And I went up to the auditorium in the back, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried. I bawled my eyes out about this for just like a howling session in the theater bathroom, so to speak, outside the auditorium. It was horrendous. And I mean, that whole well of grief, and people don't understand that. So I'm just wondering what Anna Maria has to say about that when people are grieving. So go ahead.
Absolutely. And it's not even just the part about not going into the grieving, but it's also the getting distracted by the grieving. One of the things I teach is about shadow animals. So the animals that bring up fear for us. And part of that is our aging and dying animals. All you have to do is think about your beloved animal right now. I've got my beloved cat and my beloved Great Dane here. And if I were to think and sit and think about the fact that, the Great Dane's 12, she's way past her expiration date, and if I allowed myself to go into that thought process, and so here she comes now, she wants to be in on this energy. If I allowed myself to go in there, I'd be distracted by all my thoughts about that. And what animals have taught me about the dying process, especially for people who have that connection with animals, there's this special energy that's present. And if we can stay present to what's going on, of course we're going to be sad, and we need to honor and acknowledge that sadness, but not get lost in that sadness. It's the opportunity for us to feel those emotions on a deep level and learn how to navigate our way through it. And then the beauty that I've been learning even more from the animals, and it really applies to humans too, is when that point of passing happens, when the spirit leaves the body, there is a transference of energy that happens. Of course, the being takes a majority of its energy with it, but there's some pieces that can be gifted to you. If we are lost in our grief, because remember, we're kind of taught in our society, like the harder you grieve, the more the bond was, or the stronger you loved the animal. So it's almost like we have to go into these huge theatrics drum prove our love, and some of that comes from our guilt of not being around enough, kind of just making them fit in our schedule. But what's wanting to happen is for us to be present for that so that we can receive these gifts that are wanting to come through at that moment. And when we get put into a tailspin by our grief, we're not open to that. And once they cross, they really want to stay in tune with us, and they're able to source us and help us in ways that they couldn't do when they were embodied, because they're really furry embodied guides for us. They agreed to their contract is for a particular time with us, which is really kind of like a chapter of our life. Animals are only with us for so long. And so if you look back, like your dear Sadie, look back over the time that you had with her, and you'll start to notice, like, what were the themes? And sometimes, it's, silliness, playfulness, but sometimes it's like, something a little more difficult, like I really had to learn how to take care of an aging dog, or I had to learn different ways of being, or I had to rearrange my life, or whatever. So we want to pay attention to the themes that came through with that animal during the time that we spent with them. And as we're able to get that message, that remembrance, we can integrate that, and then they can help us on these next levels. They're really trying to connect us back into our oneness, where we remember that we're so much more powerful than we think. And absolutely, animals that passed away, they actually come through quite easily. There are times, especially with cats, where they will go, they'll get out of their home, they go on like a walkabout, they go on their little adventures, and they won't connect with me. They're like, I am busy, I got stuff to do, I'm on stuff, I'm not talking to you right now. But what I'll find is that an animal that's crossed over will show up and speak for that animal. So I had one cat that had left. It got out a window, and I was trying to connect with that cat, and he was just not having anything to do with that. And one of their cats that had passed over a few years earlier showed up and said, it's going to be okay. This is what's going on. Let me share this with you. And so the animals who've crossed over, they can be really, really helpful.
Okay, so I read about a horse that was traumatized, and it kept peeing in its stall. So it was going over and over, and it was peeing in its stall all the time, and they didn't know what to do. It was in the stable, and the other horse owners were getting really upset and everything. And later on, they had somebody come in and do body testing, like muscle testing and so on, while they asked these horses these questions. And it turned out that the horse had been traumatized by watching a baby bird fall out of its nest and die. And the horse was so full of grieving and feeling so sad about this that it kept urinating in its thing. So I'm wondering, I'm going to take this for you, Anna Maria, but do you see this type of thing? Okay? So I'm wondering if their behavior gets changed.
Yeah, the message that I get from them typically, we're all wired a little bit differently, so it comes through a little bit differently for us in that message. Sometimes they'll tell me about things that are going on, like I'll have cats that used to go outside, now they won't go out, and when I check in on it, they're like, oh my gosh, I got into a fight with this big old cat, and I am just petrified. I'm not going back out there. This really, I want to be an indoor cat now. And so there's things like this, but the message that comes through that we've missed for, so many years is that these are sentient beings. They're having their own experience as well. And so for us to really begin to tune into that, I just got back from a cruise where I took a group of folks from my community out to the Caribbean, and we spent time with sea turtles and stingrays and dolphins. And as we were tuning in each of the places and checking on the messages, one of the biggest pieces that we got was we're coming to a point in our evolution and cohabitating with animals where we're needing to get their input more on what's going to be most beneficial. So it's not a day too far in the future before every animal facility has an animal communicator on
Okay, for some reason, again, you're blocking up.
staff to and talking and teaching. And some of us like, oh my gosh, that's the worst thing in the world. Don't put me in front of people. Are you crazy? And so we don't check this with these animals in captivity, and we just put them there without any regard for where their strengths lie, what they really want to do. And so this is where we get those animals that are just lethargic, depressed. They're preference, the pieces that light them up haven't been taken into account.
Okay. Again,
A whole new shift in interacting with animals.
okay, great. You know, the thing is that so often animal behavior that will be going on, people, the owners of the pets and stuff, they don't understand what the animal behavior is. So I'm suggesting right now that Anna Maria try giving me a telephone call. And so what I'll try and do is, there we go. We're going to try doing the hangout this way. Now you can hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So what I was saying is that so often what happens is that people are unable to understand why their pets might be behaving the way that they're behaving. And so, for example, I saw this thing with this animal communicator that was called in to a wildlife reserve in, I think, South Africa. And there was this beautiful big black leopard that had been brought there named Diablo. And Diablo was vicious. He'd sent the owner of the reserve to the hospital once already. He just stayed in his cage. He snarled, bit anybody that came near him, and so on. And the animal communicator came and talked to him and found out that he didn't like his name. Okay, he felt Diablo was a satanic name. It wasn't a name that represented him. And he was worried about these two little cubs that were like little leopard cubs that had been with him in the other place where he was, where he'd been abused and so on. So he was worried about what had happened to them, and he was afraid of the people in the reserve, what they were going to do to him and so on. So he was really worried about that, and he was very uncomfortable. Well, when he realized that he was in a reserve, he was allowed to do whatever he wanted to do. There was no expectations of him. They changed his name. It was no longer Diablo and everything. He was a changed animal, a completely changed animal. He came out of his cage. He started roaming around on the grounds and stuff, and it was like totally different. He wasn't vicious anymore. So are you seeing that kind of thing with animals where, you know, they're actually in a lot of angst and they're actually very upset with things and they just don't know how to express that to have the people around them understand? Are you able to translate that for them?
Absolutely. And what I end up seeing a bunch more. Okay, I'm trying to see how not to get that echo. Okay, let me do this. So what I also see, oh my goodness, I'm all tangled up now, is this piece where they're so surprised when they actually get to make a connection with a human because they've seen the disconnect for so long. There are times that I come into a situation and they don't respond right away because they're not used to it. It's almost like they've just turned off that possibility. And when I stay in the energy longer, they come out and they're just like, whoa, this is amazing. And then they get excited because there's like all these things that they've been wanting to say and talk about. And it's interesting with our companion animals, we want to find out, do they like this? Do they like that? Do they like when we go here? And what I get from the animals that I'm talking to, now the folks that I deal with predominantly are animal lovers. So they are putting their animals, first. They're doing a lot for their animals. So the first thing that always comes through is this stream of gratitude because they get that there's some other options that they could have had for their life. So for us to let go of that guilt is so detrimental to our relationship with the animals and more importantly to our own physical health. We're putting that vibration of guilt and shame and make wrong into our body and holding that in place, and it keeps a distance between us and our beloved animals, and it also begins to degrade our own health. So we really want to be always connecting to that place of love instead of making decisions from those places of fear.
When you're talking about guilt and so on, are you talking about the guilt, well, I just don't have enough time for you and this type of thing? Is that the type of guilt you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's another thing too that goes on, which is, I don't know how often that gets addressed, but there's a situation where there will be a man and a wife and maybe kids, and the husband will be off at work and the kids will be going to school, and the wife spends more time with her dog or her cat than she does with her husband and her kids, and develops a stronger bond and a stronger love for that companion animal, and can feel guilty about that the bond with the animals is stronger than the bond with the family. Do you ever experience that?
I haven't had that exact flavor of it come through. The piece that I have seen more, because when you've got an animal who lives in a home with multiple humans, it will interact, of course, differently with each of the humans, and it will take on different pieces. I just did a reading where the animal had began manifesting different symptoms in its body correlating to different family members. And so that was really fascinating. And what I will see in those situations, and I see that a lot, especially with women, where even it's more of they don't realize how connected they are to the animals and how connected the energy is, and so they don't realize that what they're going through in terms of, in that case, it might be their loneliness, it might be their frustration with feeling tied down and having to put themselves last to care for their family and everything else, and the animal begins to manifest those symptoms. Once we're able to go in and take a look, again, they always address what's going on in the 3D for themselves, whether it's behaviorally or physically, but they always want to go into what's the energetics present for the humans, because like I said, they're little furry embodied guides helping us move through these pieces with more grace and ease.
Now, have you had the situation where you can actually see an animal taking on cancer for its owner? For instance, the animal will manifest the illness, and when the animal passes away, sometimes the illness will go into the owner or the master or the individual, the family member, and so on. Have you seen that?
Absolutely, in several different ways. Actually, one thing that the animals have been telling me is that what's going on for them is often a precursor or an indicator for us of things that are going on. So it's like there's literally the canary in the mine, sending us back the messages saying, oh, this energy is not okay, we need to do some shifting. We'll see that, again, like you said, the animal passes and either they get another animal and it ends up with the issues, then the human gets that. I'll also see this when there are people who have untapped abilities. So they're not managing their energy well. They're open up to all these different energies and entities and cosmic riffraff, really. And the animal will take it on to try and transmute, because our animals will try, what they do is they take on the energy that either we can't or we won't transmute, and they'll try and transmute it. But just like in our bodies, when it gets to be too much, it will show up as dis-ease or behavioral issues. And so it's so important for us to use them as like barometers. This is what they've agreed to. And the best thing we can do for our animals is to be responsible for our energy. Really authentic and acknowledging.
Another thing that I've seen is that in hospitals and so on, there's an animal, for example, in one hospital that could tell when in the geriatric ward when people were passing away. So that animal would go and it would lie down under the bed or beside the bed, and as a companion to whatever patient was going to die. They had to move the animal out of the hospital because it became like a fear thing. You know, if the animal came and lay down beside you, it was your death sentence. So, you know, the fact that they can sense death before it happens, and now they're using animals to signal in a special way, either lick the palm of the hand or do something to people that are about to have a seizure. 20 minutes before they have their epileptic seizure, the animal is aware of it. You hear about animals with tsunamis and so on. You know, they all start to run away before the tsunami happens. Or earthquakes, the same thing. So the animals really seem to have a sixth sense that highly developed, much more than we do. And one thing too, we have Linda who's joined us. Now I don't know if Linda, how your audio is going to sound, but if you want to try, if you want a reading or anything like that, you know, try talking and we'll see what happens. It's a hodgepodge today.
Okay. Hi, Allison. Hi, Anna Maria.
Hi, I can hear you. I don't know, can Anna Maria? Can you hear Anna Maria?
Yeah, I do hear.
Oh, great.
Awesome. Yeah, hi, Anna Maria. Good to see you back home from the ocean.
Uh-oh, I can't hear now.
Now you can't.
I wonder if you have to hold it up to your microphone.
Good to see you. Good to see you back from the ocean. So you go ahead and talk, Linda, and I'll translate.
Okay. I wanted to find out about my poodle. Her name is Bella.
She wants to find out about her poodle. The name is Bella.
Yeah, she's been. I don't know if it's age, or cataracts, or something about me. She seems to be going blind, and I've been giving her some of the same supplements I've been taking.
She doesn't know if it's age or blindness, cataracts, or what's happening, but she seems to be going blind, and she's been giving her some of the same supplements that she's taking.
Yeah, it just is. Is there anything that she can tell me, give me some insights? Is there anything else I can do?
Is there anything that the poodle, Bella, can tell you that will help Linda understand more about what she can do?
Absolutely. And of course, the first thing that comes through is that gratitude for being able, she's really, really sweet, to be able to connect in this way, and for you to even realize that there's other things going on. So big kudos to you, Linda, and really take that in. So often we don't fully take that acknowledgement in, and that's just our old stories and our old stuff. So we can let that go and take it in. She is showing me and letting me feel into the depth of your bond. So this is really profound that it's going on, and so fascinating that you're both having these vision problems. What I'm seeing for her is it's a genetic degenerative kind of piece, but again, we know everything is energy. We can shift things. We can actually make a change in this 3D reality. So as you begin to look into what is it that's close to you that you are able or you're unwilling to see, because, and here's the specific twist for you, because it would require that you speak your truth. And I have this huge constriction in my throat right now. Like I kind of feel like I want to cough or clear my throat. And so Bella's showing me this piece where if you really honestly had to take a look at what was going on and the places where things aren't okay with you, but being the good girl, you gloss over things, you try and make things nice to your own detriment. And so it gets to the point where energetically it's easier to just not see things anymore. And so absolutely you can do the supplemental pieces that are going to help. One of the pieces that there's a couple that are coming through right away. So the first thing would be to change her drinking water to a distilled water, because that's going to help stop any deposits that are adding to any of the cloudiness that's going on, that's adding to the vision impurities. Also, we're wanting to make sure that her minerals are up. So whether you're doing some kind of holistic veterinary formula for minerals or something simple like powdered organic alfalfa. And Bella, I'm getting that she's, well, let's see, I'm getting, you don't need a lot of this, like a teaspoon in her food. Apple cider vinegar is another piece. You're going to want to do more like a half of a tablespoon on that in her food, and mixing in these pieces to help supplement that. And then for you to let go of that attachment of reversing it, because you've got this belief that if you don't fix her vision, then it means something about you. And while she's reflecting things back, going into make wrong and going into guilt or shame, we already talked about that, is a lower vibration, and it keeps you stuck in that cycle just from another perspective. Is that helpful for you, Linda?
It is, and I know we have a bond because I'm fairly sure that she's also shared this lifetime with me before as Josette. She's almost looks exactly the same personality. So
okay, hang on, Linda. Hang on. So she said that yes, it is helping. It's helping quite a bit, and she knows that they actually share a bond because Bella actually resembles very strongly Lizette, who was the companion animal prior to Bella.
Yeah, is Lizette will make guest appearances from time to time through Bella, and this is really common. It will happen, and it's happening more and more as we got closer to the 2012 energy shift and all of that, where people's animals were reincarnating in the same lifetime. Before, like the last maybe 10 years or so, it wasn't very common. They didn't typically reincarnate in the same lifetime. It was typically, like they meet us up in the next. But what I see even more often than a reincarnation in this lifetime are these cameo guest appearances. And cats actually are the most astute at this. But what you'll see is, like, there'll be times that you'll look at your animal and you'll get a flash, or they'll have a mannerism, or they'll do something that reminds you of that other animal, and know that it is that animal making an appearance for a moment, and to acknowledge that and to be grateful for that and ask for more, because the more we tune ourselves into looking for these pieces and seeing these pieces, the more we're going to see them.
Okay, awesome.
She said, okay, awesome. So, I want to thank you very much, Linda, for joining us.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you, Anna.
Appreciate it. And she said, thank you. Linda says, thank you, Anna, very much. So, I think that it's so important to be able to open these lines of communication. And do you feel, Anna, that anyone is able to communicate with their animals if they learn how?
Absolutely. I'm a strong believer in that we're all born with these abilities. We just haven't been trained to use them. Taught us any of this, really. And my understanding is, like, there's some people, or let me back up. Anyone can learn how to play the piano, technically. Someone can sit you down and show you, you press these keys, it's going to make this noise. Now, there's certain people who have a predisposition, a musical ear, or they're better at it. It's going to come more easily. So what our mission is to open up and find what channels it is that it wants to come through. And deciphering the messages, it's so interesting. So kind of like our call here, like we're having to piece it together, like one part here I'm speaking into, this part here I'm listening into, in between you're giving me messages. And a lot, this is actually quite perfect, because this is how I work energetically. Like, I'm getting all these different pieces and putting them together in like a puzzle, like a cosmic puzzle, to show me and decipher a message. And so this is what tends to trip people up. Like I said, your dog doesn't walk up to you and start talking and blah, 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 blah. So we assume we're not getting the message. But they're showing us in ways, things that are showing up in the things that are showing up in the experience, we're able to begin to decipher that. Is it in the back of the body? Is it in the front of the body? What is it like? And so to open people up to the understanding and shifting the perspective to open up to the messages, that program is about. It's this kind of foundational piece that allows people to shift into the possibilities that they're getting messages all the time. Like back at the beginning where I said we spend so much time asking and very little time listening for the answers. And so I'm able to take people through different aspects of looking at the messages from animals for them to begin to tune in and see what's going on.
Anna, you've developed this really fascinating 4-part course that you're going to be doing really soon and so on. And I want people to know that they can find out more about that at your vibranthealthsecrets.com/Anna, A-N-A. So that's your vibranthealthsecrets.com/ANA. And the thing that I really appreciate about you is that you're really helping to teach people how to get the messages from the wild animals, which for me that's been a huge part, and how to get the messages from the companion animals, because that's been another huge part of my life. And I've had so many circumstances, I've had so many pets during the course of my lifetime and so on that have helped me so much. And even my brother and sister-in-law, they had this little tiny puppy, and I had this injury on my leg that I had to have a leg operation. It was a dislocating kneecap from gymnastics, and they operated on it. And my mother fixed me up with this bed, like a mattress on the floor in the living room. And this little dog came and stayed with me, wouldn't go home to his home, and just stayed with me the whole time and slept beside me, and was so conscious never to move around the spot, the knee that had been operated on, was so aware, never hurt me once, and was just so conscious of that. It was truly amazing, the sensitivity and the knowledge that this animal had. So I would love, just love for you to describe to us what the components, each of the components that people can find at your vibranthealthsecrets.com/Anna. Can you describe this to us?
Absolutely. And before I get to that, what wants to come through for you is that situation, the way that played out with that animal, absolutely talks about that animal's tuned inness, but it really speaks volumes to your ability to receive and be in that vibration, and the animal sensed that. And so really, again, this is the part where we need to take in this acknowledgement. The animal was recognizing your energy and was in reverence and sentinel for you.
What's so funny too is that Sadie, now I have had lots of pets and so on, but Sadie was the one with the biggest connection, because she was such a bad girl and so on. And people used to say, what kind of dog is she? And my friends would say, oh, she's a Rottenheimer, And she really thought she was human. And I have photographs of her talking to people. Okay, she'd carry on a conversation. She'd go, and rah, 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 and she'd actually be talking. It was the weirdest thing that you've ever seen. And she was extremely defiant. So, I took her to obedience school, and we went home the next day, or that day from obedience school. And that evening, she went through the whole routine that the show dog did. Like everything that the show dog did, she did perfectly. And she never did it again. She just caused riots in the class. She was so smart. It was really amazing. And I've written a bunch of stories about her, which I'm having illustrated right now, children's stories. So she was really fun. She had more air miles than most people. She traveled all over the world with me, and in a sailboat, and you name it, she did it. So it was really fun. But I'm really interested in learning more. This is something I've always been totally fascinated with. I want to find out more about how we do this and so on. So tell me more about what you've put together to help people and so that people can have the chance to, have live sessions with you where they can ask, have readings and ask questions and answers and so on. Tell us all about it.
Absolutely. So it's a 6-part class, and I alternate between course content and live sessions where we're doing readings. So like what I did with Linda, we would be doing with the participants in the class. So the first, third, and fifth weeks are course content. The first week is animals as messengers. So animals in the wild. So we talk about how to begin to decipher and even just notice what's going on, some of the common themes, and then how can it be that two people see the same animal but have very different interpretations of what happened. So we talk about things like that. The next session we do the group reading so you can get some more clarity on that piece. I can go in and help you decipher what's been going on or get you acknowledgement for what you've been interpreting. The next class is companion animals as messengers because, like we've said, they have a special flavor of being connected to us, and it's so much more intimate. And so we talk all about those pieces. Then we go into another live group session where it's all about the participants. Everybody gets to ask a question, and I do a mini reading on them. The next session is shadow animals as messengers, and these are the animals that strike fear in us. So the lions and tigers and bears, the snakes and the spiders, the creepy crawlies, any of those. And those shadow animals are so powerful for us. They typically represent aspects of ourselves that we are not willing or able to step into, but if we were able to, and I'm not saying like you got to make friends and, make a snake your bedfellow or something like that, but to make peace with the energy and to be open to what's wanting to come through. The other piece of the shadow animals, of course, is like we talked about too, aging and dying animals. That strikes so much fear in us. And so we talk about that, and we talk about a new way to be with all of that. And then, of course, we end again with the live session and doing the live readings. So you really get to connect in with me. And this course, I've been so astounded, over the that I newbies in the course, like folks that were like, I don't know, I heard you on this show and I've not ever really been that connected, but I felt like I should, join this program. And they have these profound shifts in their relationship with animals and their understanding, all the way up to professional animal communicators and intuitives that take the course as ongoing professional development. And the shifts and perspective changes that they get is amazing. So I love that this course has such a broad appeal, and I've got several people in my community that take it every time I offer it. And it's not because the course content changes. I've got my, my downloads from the animals, what I'm going to share, but it's because as we expand and grow, we shift, and what we're able to take in shifts. And so I'm so grateful for that. And there's 2 great bonuses that go with that package also. One of them is a session I did with Crystal Hughes, who I believe has been on your show as well. And she does a session on animals in the ascension process. And that was so enlightening to look at that. The other one is a session that I did with Lynn Chown, who works with the Devas. And she talked about the nature spirits as messengers and how you can connect in with the fairies, the nature spirits, the dragons, the mermaids, and it's just fascinating. I heard people when we delivered it last time say they got writer's cramp from how many notes they were writing during the session. So they're really fun bonuses and another way to go in even deeper from another aspect. So I'm so proud of the package.
Wow, it is incredible. It really is, because the thing is we have gotten so out of touch. Somebody just sent me today a petition to sign about in China where they have these keychains, which are these little plastic sacks that have oxygen and nutrients to keep little critters alive for 2 months. So they put these little live turtles and lizards and so on in these keychains. and it's like a toy thing. You know, we're totally disconnected from that. We're disconnected from the conditions of the animals in the slaughterhouses and so on with the food that we're eating. We see a packaged food and we don't make a connection to the fact that there's actually an animal behind that, and what kind of conditions did that animal live in. We're not making connections with, again, what we're doing with irradiating, completely irradiating and blanketing the earth with our fixation and our love of wireless, which is causing so much damage to so many people and so many animals. And the bees, you know, the bees are disappearing from the pesticides like Roundup, but they're also disappearing from what we're doing. And so the animals have a distinct message to give us. And we really do need to open up our ability to tap in and to hear what they're saying to us, to hear what they're warning us, to hear the good guidance and wisdom that they have to give us. So I really appreciate what you have for us. I really appreciate that you've made this course available for our viewers. And, you know, I'd love to hear from you. What parting comment would you like people to take away from all of this?
Oh, well, you know, the biggest thing that's coming through right now is opening up to possibility that there's more going possible with our animals, and that we're able to tune in.
Can you repeat that? Because you broke up quite a bit. I'd like just to try to repeat it one more time.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that there's so much more going on at an energetic level than we've ever been led to believe. And when we open up to that possibility, we open ourselves up to this stream of universal consciousness that can tune us in and tap us into that universal wisdom that allows us to live our life in a whole new way and show up in a new way. And the animals become our guides, our assistants on our cosmic committee to help us move through our evolutionary process.
Wow, you know, our guides helping us move through our evolutionary process. That's huge. Ana Maria Vasquez, thank you. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I am really sorry that we've had so many technical difficulties, but pleased as all get out that we managed to work around them. And I think this will be absolutely wonderful. I know a lot of people have been trying to reach us via the other Hangout and so on and haven't quite negotiated their way over, but they will get to hear this at a later date on your vibrant.healthsecrets.com. So thank you. Thank you very, very much for your time. And everyone, go to your vibrant.healthsecrets.com/ANA to find out more about this program. It's absolutely astounding. It will get you back in touch, and you'll never look at the animals and you as separate beings again. So thank you very, very much, Anna, and thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate you.